Welcome to another Homes on Homes podcast. We're live at Improve Canada and sitting in what we call this little tiny home off the pool at Leisure Pools. This is something I want. It's got a kitchen, it's got an area to sit and enjoy with a fireplace, and of course an office with a Murphy bed. So if you want to sleep at night, you can. Right beside the pool. Great idea. Today, we're going to be talking about electrical and to Emily LaRose, one of the vice presidents and general counsel of ESA, Electrical Safety Authority. Also, Trevor Tremblay. Is that correct?
Yes.
I just want to say the name. You're French.
No.
You're not. Tremblay, I thought would be a French name.
People call my house and they talk French to me automatically when they know my last name, but my dad didn't speak French. My grandfather did, but just didn't
Well,
happen.
I would never speak French to you because I really don't know French. He's a technical advisor. And the reason why we're going back into electrical again is because so many people have watched the podcasts we're doing and they have unanswered questions or just not enough information. So today I want to really play this. At the end of this, I'm going to show you some pictures that really have startled me. Once again, real pictures. I swear to God, people set this up, but they're real pictures that make no sense. Something we should look at. Let's get right into questions. Now, this one here I like is rapid fire, right from the audience. I bought an older house. How do I know if my electrical needs to be upgraded?
It's really a tricky question, depending on the age of the home. Like we have a big mandate for electrical safety in Ontario, and one of it is aging infrastructure. Just getting a licensed electrical contractor in there to look at your service, the age of it. If you have fuses, typically the fuses are safe, but the age of the panel and the overloading of a lot of those circuits warp the bus. So even if you have fuses and it looks good from the outside, typically behind the scenes it's actually pretty bad and could cause a fire.
And the problem with fuses is somebody getting tired of changing that 15 amp fuse because it keeps blowing and they put in a 20 or a 25 amp fuse, which then becomes very dangerous. In the question itself, it's very clear. I bought an older house. Okay, I say this all the time. It's really cheap, and I tried to create a test and troubleshoot system with Frank, my electrician, and the electrical, plumbing, structure, HVAC. Anyone can hire the right people, a licensed electrical contractor, to come in and do a test and troubleshoot. I'm never afraid of buying a house that's old and worrying about the electrical, because as soon as you get in, you bring in the licensed electrical contractor and say, tell me what's wrong with the electrical. They'll quickly look through. They'll tell you all the problems, what's good, what's bad, and what needs to be done to fix it. Really simple and inexpensive. Anywhere from $450 to $700 to do a test and troubleshoot. Something simple that everyone can do. That also relates to heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing. You can bring these guys in just to check it. So never be afraid. I'd be more afraid the older home has asbestos in the plaster or in the tiles or the boots around the ductwork. These are other things and subjects, but that's why you keep watching what we're doing. Can I plug in my electric vehicle to a regular outlet in my garage?
There are different levels of charging that you can have and different kinds of electrical infrastructure that needs to support those different levels of charging. I'll let Trevor get into the specifics of what's required for those different levels.
For the most part, if you just had a plug-in charger class 1, you would need a 20 amp dedicated circuit. If you just plug into any receptacle, it could be on with a plug-in heater down the road in a different room. It could overload your circuit, trip breakers, and over time, degrade the system enough that it could potentially cause a shock or a fire hazard.
Well, the problem now is everyone's buying an electric vehicle right now, and I get it. I keep thinking about myself, should I buy an electric vehicle? But I have so many cars now, it doesn't make financial sense for me to buy another vehicle. I don't get to drive them all as it is. But we're making too many mistakes when it comes to an EV charger, and I think the safest route is to plug into a 110 outlet, 20 amp breaker, which it should be wired that way, and you might have to bring in a licensed electrical contractor to do so, because it charges the battery slowly. But in today's world, we want to get a coffee now. We want that car to charge now. So a lot of people will tend to bring someone in and put in an EV charger on their panel. And in most cases, I'm hearing this, they're done without a licensed electrical contractor.
Yeah, typically we're finding a lot done without permits.
Speaking of permits, I'm going to go back and forth here because there's so many things that I read on what I'm seeing. Consequences. I love the consequences. So we're going to go back and forth. If an unlicensed contractor gets hurt on the job, the homeowner may be responsible as the unlicensed contractor may not be insured. This one I can answer goes to anyone out there. It doesn't matter if he's a plumber, a roofer, you name it. If they're not insured and they're on your property and they get hurt, they can sue you. So you must make sure they're insured. Same goes for a licensed electrical contractor.
Absolutely. Every licensed electrical contractor is required to have insurance for their work and also WSIB protection for their staff and their employees. And that protects them, but it protects you as the homeowner, which is so important.
However, how many contractors, and I'm talking general contractors or just contractors, are out there to say, no problem, I can do the electrical. It's only minor. It's a couple of switches and a couple of plugs. Where's the responsibility now in that case as a consequence? Can they be fined? Can the homeowner be fined for allowing this to happen in their home and they didn't pull a permit? So let's start with a permit. Can they be fined if they didn't pull a permit, homeowners?
So in that case, both the homeowner and the person who did the work have been non-compliant with the Electricity Act and with the requirements to have work done by a licensed party and to have that work done under a permit issued by the ESA or provided by the ESA. In terms of how we're actually going to deal with that, oftentimes the homeowner really has been a dupe of the person that they hired and who they've put their trust in. And so, how we would deal with that on a case-by-case basis would really depend. But homeowners should be aware that there is that risk of a consequence to them, not only in terms of a fine or a prosecution, but also really the quality of the work that's been done and the risk that they've put their property and their family in.
So the truth is the homeowner can be fined and the contractor can be fined.
Yep.
But you don't want to fine everyone, and what you want to do is kind of smack them on the wrist and go, don't do that again. You need a permit, and that's why you need a permit to make sure it's done properly. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the number one insurance issue on any home the house burning or from electrical? Number one, fires.
It's a huge concern, and I think sometimes people think that something like a pot light or an extra outlet it's a small thing, and they're the general contractor that they've hired to renovate their basement or renovate that small powder room, that they can take care of it, and perhaps they've been given assurance by the person doing that work. But I'm sure Trevor can give examples of times where things that seem like a little electrical project can cause very significant safety harms, and including the risk of fire.
So not just that, but actually, did you know that if a permit wasn't pulled by a contractor, by anyone, including yourself, and there was a fire due to the electrical from the job that was done, the insurance company in your home will not insure it, correct?
It really depends on the insurer.
What insurance package you have?
Precisely.
A dummy package?
And I think it will also depend on the nature of the fire, but it is a risk. It is absolutely a risk, and it's something that we're working with insurance companies to raise their awareness of this as a phenomenon, so that we can really bring insurance companies on as partners in spreading the safety message.
If it's a risk where an insurance company can deny your claim because of somebody else, odds are they will deny the claim, and you got to keep that in mind. That's important. Look, when it comes to your house, I keep saying you have to do things right the first time. It's that simple. We have laws in place when it comes to electrical in Ontario and the ESA to say that if you don't get a permit, you can be fined. If you don't hire a licensed electrical contractor, and because of this, let's talk about that. We have a licensed electrical contractor and an electrician. Tell me the difference.
Well, an LEC is licensed through Electrical Safety Authority to do contracting work in the province of Ontario. They employ certified electricians and master electricians. Master electricians and certified electricians can work for an LEC, but they can't contract on their own. So the real difference is one employs the other. One has the license to take out the permits, and the other ones work for them. So they can't.
And you just said it. Who can actually take out the permits?
The licensed electrical contractor has to take out the permits.
Or a homeowner.
Or a homeowner in certain circumstances.
So that means if you're a homeowner and you know a little bit about electrical, you can get your own permit. And that actually works because now we're going to see ESA come in to inspect the work that you've done, make sure it's done safely. And if anything, they're going to guide you, even if you've made a couple of mistakes. Try not to make the mistake again because they don't want to keep coming back, but it's to your favor. Or bring in a licensed electrical contractor who can pull the permit to bring in the electricians that he hires. It's really simple and safe. It's safe. Because when I show you these pictures, I keep looking at these pictures today going, are you kidding me? Seriously? Is this real? Okay. This is from homeowners. Can you hire a certified electrician to do work in your home?
No.
Must be.
They must be a licensed electrical contractor.
Because they're recognized by ESA, correct?
Absolutely. And they will have the insurance and the WSIB protection in place that keeps you and your property safe. There'll be certified electricians on the job, overseen by that licensed electrical
When
contractor.
exactly was this implemented? Because I can remember years ago I was able to do electrical work in people's houses, and I did, as long as you pull a permit, and I did. And it changed somewhere around, I'm going to think, 15 years ago?
It was the mid-2000s, I think it's 2007.
I started with ESA in 2006, and it was coming in then.
Yeah.
And it was grandfathered in a lot of communities where people were still able to take out permits for a little while, but around mid-2000s.
And I love it because it was the first time in my career as a contractor that all of a sudden now there's ramifications. In other words, if you do something wrong, you can get in trouble for doing it. Because I've always said this, a contractor can come in your home, take it apart, take your money, leave, and they don't get arrested. They don't go to jail unless they follow through and follow through. And that's a great point. I saw this somewhere in the paperwork here that have you actually got people, have you actually given people fines? Have you done some give it back to the bad guys?
Absolutely. So we have the power to initiate prosecutions, something that we have done and do on an ongoing basis for people who advertise electrical services but aren't licensed, people who undertake electrical services without being licensed. And in some cases, not only have they done that, so they're not licensed, they're not pulling the necessary permits, but the work that they've done is code, is not compliant with the code, is blatantly unsafe. In some cases, has actually caused property damage or personal injury. So we have the power to initiate prosecutions and to prosecute people, and those result in fines, very serious fines in some cases.
Good, because if we do things wrong, we should be getting in trouble for it, and not just it's okay, don't worry about it, you're fine. No,
Absolutely.
it's bad.
What I will say is that the vast majority of our licensed electrical contracting community are compliant. They've invested to be compliant. They're doing the work correctly. They're pulling the permits, and they shouldn't be disadvantaged by competing with people who are cutting corners and not protecting their customers. And that's a really important priority for us.
I like that. Recently, we just finished an episode, and wonderful family got screwed by the contractor, $500,000 out of pocket. A year later, they still don't have a house to live in. They're living on their boat, even in the winter, in a small sailboat with 2 kids and a dog. The contractor hired an electrician at the beginning, and then he disappeared, and the contractor himself tried to take over. Now, there was a lot of problems, and I don't want to blame anyone, but I'll tell you this, the electrical was wrong. They did all the pot lights first, which blew me away, and then put in structural beams with steel pinning it against the floor of the second floor. 1. 2, there was junctions everywhere. 3, I go up into the bathroom, and there's a live wire hanging down inside the wall, right off the floor, hanging down, a live wire. The problem with the bathroom was he didn't slope the floor. It's an old home, and everything ran towards where the wire was, not the door, right to where the wire was. The shower was not waterproofed, but I knew that as soon as someone stepped into that shower, and it was right behind the drywall, they had drywall there, because when I pulled the drywall off, I tested the line. The water from the shower would have run right to the line, and what would have happened?
Probably shock.
How bad of a shock?
It could have been fatal.
Because you're 100% grounded. People need to understand this. If your feet are wet, you are now grounded. In other words, you might as well put a steel rod into the ground, grab that ground line, and hold it. And if it's raining outside, that's usually not good, especially when lightning's around. Well, it's no different being in the shower with a live line hanging down. Odds are you're going to get hit very hard by it and can stop your heart. Just like they try to recover you. If you had a heart attack, they'll revive you. They're giving you a shock to your heart to restart your heart. And this is how you can end up being tragically killed for it. It's stop your heart just like that. Electricity, that could just fry you and turn you black instantly. Yeah, these are things that we need to do better in how we build science, etc. Electrical surges. But I mean, you guys are on this like I've never seen. It's the one out of all the businesses that I do, in other words, construction, that you are doing your damnedest to make sure people do it right, including contractors, electricians, and licensed electrical contractors and homeowners.
Yep.
And thank you for that. I'm now that I'm going all over the place. Here's a question here: how can you spot an unlicensed electrician? What's an easy way of spotting them?
It's really not that easy to spot because they come across looking legit. They go to their way to do it. They come up with some fancy name like Good Guy Electric, and they talk really well. They're salesmen, but some of the things to look for is Google them, because usually if you have a licensed electrical contractor, if you Google their name, it'll come up with an address, phone number, some reviews.
Or better yet, as a homeowner, say, can I see your license and insurance? Do it to your contractor, do it to your plumber, do it to your builder, I don't care. Can I see your license and insurance? And then what? Can they check?
Absolutely. So the license number, the ESA ECRA license number, should be on their truck or their van. It should be on their business card. It should be on any quote that you're given or any correspondence that you're given. And then you can take that number or their name, go to the ESA website, esasafe.com, and you can look it up. You can look up that contractor either by name or by their license number and verify that the number they've given you or the name that they've given you is somebody that's licensed and on our books. That is the number one way,
to me,
because it's very difficult otherwise.
That's a step in the right direction. Just confirm it. Just make sure of it, because remember, it's your home and you're liable. So confirm it. It's not really that hard to do. I heard there's something new that came up April 7th. What is it?
Absolutely. So we were talking a little bit about what are the consequences for people that aren't compliant. We have the power to prosecute, but we have a new power to issue administrative penalties, which are, the best analogy would be more like a parking ticket. So something that doesn't need to go through an entire court process in order to be initiated, but really it's an ability for us to give a consequence, a financial penalty to people, very much quicker and very much more easily, so that we can really get at the heart of the underground economy. People who are working without licenses, people who are not following the permit process, and who are putting their consumers and their customers at risk.
Well, if you're on your phone in the car and the police see you, I think it's a $1,000 ticket right now, and points.
I can assure you I don't know.
But I'll tell you,
Yeah.
so this now you have the right just to go, absolutely, wham, here's a financial penalty. Yeah. Don't do it again. This is a warning, because now you're on file. Like going through the airport and you're not claiming that you got 4 bottles of booze instead of 2.
Yeah.
Now you're on file. Now every time you go through the airport, they're going to pull your ass in the back and check your luggage. That's exactly what happens. But that, I think, needs to be put in place, because we've been talking about this for years. I've been doing it on television for years, and we still have the cowboys out there playing with things that they shouldn't be playing with. They just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And electrical is one of them. Don't touch it if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're afraid of getting fined. Next is probably if they go to court and they've been proven over and over again that they have not complied, they can go to jail now, correct?
That is one of the powers that is under the Act, that people could have an incarceration consequence, but the fines are very significant too, into sort of hundreds of thousands of dollars if the judge feels that the circumstances warrant it.
Good. And on that show that I was talking about, it took a while, but the man was arrested for fraud. He was arrested for, I think you guys went after him for the electrical also, and he was fined, yeah, I'm hoping. But I know that he actually went to jail. Here's a contractor that was taking from everyone in his area. And the police started to watch him, and they started to be a regular thing that he was doing, taking money, not doing things never getting permits, never getting electrical permits, and finally he got spanked big time because he went to jail. I'd like to see this more in the world because, you know, that family lost $500,000 to this guy. He went to jail. I think he went to jail for 2 days. He got out. Now he hires a lawyer. It'll be probably a year or two before it actually gets to court and sees whether or not he's actually going to serve time. But I want to go back to the point that he took $500,000. It was over from this wonderful couple that believed he was going to make it right for them. And they gave him chances. They did everything. As a matter of fact, at the end of it, it was the contractor who said to the homeowner, you know, this is too much stress for me. I think, you know, we're going to have to break up. So he broke up with them like it was a relationship, a husband and wife. We're going to have to break up. And he goes to the next house and he does it again. And I'm very thankful that he did go to jail, and hopefully he gets charged in the long run and he gets his butt kicked for what he's done. Because one family was $500,000. Imagine how many other families he took money from. Where the hell does this money go? Has he got a cash mattress hidden somewhere full of cash? That's a lot of money, and they can't get money back. That's the problem that I see.
Yeah.
And they should go to jail. What can a homeowner do if they've suspected they've hired an unlicensed contractor? What can they do? All of a sudden they realize, man, is he licensed? What could they do?
So it's really the same thing. You can ask for the license number, check the van, check the things that you're getting in terms of business cards or those kinds of things, and look them up on our contractor lookup tool, esasafe.com. The other really important thing is that a permit will result at the end of that work in a certificate issued by the ESA, and you should ask for it every time you're getting electrical work done. It's an important piece of paper to keep in your house file to show the work that's been done and that it's been done compliantly. But that's another way of you verifying that the work was done by someone licensed and it was done according to the requirements in the code.
Should the homeowner actually call and sort of tattletale? You know, I've hired this guy. He's been doing work on my house. I thought he was licensed, but he's not. Should they do that?
Yes, please. Absolutely. Because if we don't get that information from the consumers, we don't have that important opportunity to go after them and use some of these consequences that we have the ability to put on people.
ESA's anonymous reporting tool. esasafe.com, report a contractor. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that is a way for the community, whether you've hired somebody or you see somebody out in your community who you feel is possibly not licensed but is doing electrical work, that's a way for you to let us know. You can do it anonymously, whether you're the next door neighbor or whether you're the customer, to let us know as much information as you can about the identity of this person or company and what they're doing, what you've seen, so that we can take that lead, investigate it, and follow up on it. And we may be issuing an administrative penalty, we may be prosecuting, but it's an opportunity for us to get that information. As many eyes and ears on the streets as we can use to find these leads, we want them.
I like that.
Can I add to that though?
Yeah.
Please.
I do recommend them checking to make sure they are licensed electrical contractors, and if they're not, reporting it to us as soon as possible, because a lot of times we get involved after things go south.
And they're gone.
And they're in the wind, they have no phone number. It's, like I said before, a burner phone. They pick up pay-as-you-goes. They have no address. We've tried to catch people, well, we've caught people, and we can't find them. They're gone, and they're gone with your cash, and there's nothing we can do at that point, so we have to find them early.
But isn't that the norm? It's like everybody thanks the homeowner. They think everything's going great. Oh, look, it's been demoed, and they've done a little bit of electrical. They've done a little bit of plumbing, even though it's done wrong. Homeowners don't usually know the way things are supposed to go. Oh, don't worry, I've got the permits. They think they've got permits. And I tell people, permits need to be in the window, not electrical permits by chance. That's done by a licensed electrical contractor. Plumbing, HVAC, building permits must be posted in the window. Is there a future where we're going to see an electrical permit in the window?
I think what is really important for people to understand is that building permit doesn't cover all of the work that's part of that project.
But it's a great point that if we have these permits in the window, there's going to be electrical work done on this home.
Yeah.
Then you can quickly check to see if a permit was pulled to protect you.
We will take that away.
It'd be a lot easier for us just driving down the street and, okay, there's a building permit right there. Because we've accidentally found people, we're going down the street, we don't look at the address, we pull into the wrong yard because they have a NIM bin sitting there. So we actually go in and walk in the house and they're doing electrical work and everyone's just like, what are you doing here? I'm here for an inspection. And they're actually doing electrical work. We're catching them red-handed, but there's no permit. We're at the wrong house. So we actually find people that way by accident.
Well, I think that's good. That's what happened to me. My goodness, I was 21 years old, 21. And I was working on a house and I put in a new panel. I rewired the whole, not the whole house, but the whole first floor. And an inspector came in, he was an electrical inspector. And he said, how you doing? What's your name? I told him my name. And that was a long time ago. And he says, did you pull a permit? And I said, no. I was honest. And he said, okay, you're going to stop the job right now. You're going to get a permit by tomorrow or you're in trouble. He was all over me. And he says, then I'm going to go through your work with a fine-tooth comb. At the end of it, he went through the work and he says, man, you do better electrical than I've seen with electricians. Why aren't you licensed? And at the time, I said, do I have to be licensed? And he said, no. He says, but you have to get a permit. I said, that'll never happen again. I'll get a permit, don't you worry. And I did. I followed it through. But I was a freak for that. I was doing electrical at six with my father, right? And my father didn't know at the time, which was many years ago, me being 6, I just turned 30 times 2. 30 times 2. He didn't get permits. But back then, no one really got permits, did they? They didn't get building permits, they didn't get electrical permits, they didn't get plumbing permits. Everyone was fixing their own home when I was a kid. Then it started to become a real business and everyone had to start getting permits. Because people are paying attention when houses start falling down from no underpinning or burning down from improper electrical, or why is my house flooded because somebody did some plumbing work in your home. One thing I have noticed is that when homeowners hire a contractor and there's little things going wrong, little red flags I call them, usually everything is wrong because they don't know enough, but they keep going. And this is a bad thing. Again, this is the only trade that has stepped up to the plate to say, look at now there is penalties if you do something wrong. And I'm sure you don't want to penalize everyone. Like me, being young at 21, doing electrical, you walk in, you can see the work's neat. Like everything was level. I'm a freak for these things. It was great, but I didn't pull a permit. I'm being honest about it. And he was good about it. He said he could find me, but he checked all the work and, then he taught me something new. He had to find one thing wrong. I had jumped off the bathroom receptacle GFI to a plug outside. He said, that needs to be on its own. I said, explain to me, can that work? And he goes, yes. He says, the problem is, if someone's in the bathroom using a hairdryer and someone's outside trying to plug in the electric lawnmower, it's going to trip. So no one's going to get electrocuted, but I did do something wrong that was not really, you know what, I learned from it.
That's good. I think one of the other things that's changed, that is one of the reasons why the focus and the energy on this, has really changed over the years, is that the kind of electrical equipment people are using in their homes, has really evolved as well. We're talking about electric vehicles, we're talking about hot tubs, we're talking potentially about solar panels or storage of electrical power that's being generated in the home. That is putting a load on your system. It's higher voltage equipment, and there's more risk, than there was in the 1960s when the kind of electrical equipment that was used in a home, just wasn't the same kind of size.
In the 60s, and I remember this, most houses were 60 amp or 100 amp. Never really heard of 200 amp because there was no air conditioning. I mean, somewhere around late 60s, you got the 5-ton unit that went in the window. You didn't have a central vac in the, you didn't have a central air conditioning unit with your furnace. So I like the way you said that. As we're growing, no one could afford a hot tub. I mean, what we did was sit on the front porch talking to our neighbors all the time at night because it was so hot. And all streets did this. There was so much socializing by sitting on the front porch because it was too hot to sit in the house. then bit by bit. And now that we're bringing in EV cars, now people don't even know this. A hot tub used to be the highest amperage draw in your home on a breaker of anywhere from 40 to 60 amps. Today, an EV can be up to 80 amps. Is that correct?
80 amp breaker typically, yeah. Some of the higher end ones.
Yeah, this could be because they want that quick charge, which I don't recommend. They want that quick charge all the time. I think when it comes to an EV car, you have to do 3 light charges to every full fast charge. And I believe that's in the cars themselves, but people really are not paying attention to that. And it will, over time, kill the batteries instead of prolong the battery life. Mm-hmm. Right? Much like my tools. It's the same way. You fast charge them all the time, eventually they just wear down because it's supercharged. And that alone, knowing that the EV is that much power, you want to make sure you pull a permit and have a licensed electrical contractor.
And the hot tub used to go on and off, right? Your EV is going to charge for hours, constantly.
Right.
So that'll actually find every weak spot in your system because those conductors will heat up, the breaker will heat up, every loose joint will heat up, and over time could cause fire or shock. And so you probably should have an LEC go through everything, make sure everything's nice and tight, and do a quality job.
And the truth is, it probably will start a fire. Not could, it probably will. Because that charge is running for hours, like you said, if the gauge of the wire is not big enough, that gauge of the wire now at an 80 amp is 6 gauge or 8 gauge? 6.
6. Maybe 4. It might actually be 4.
It might be 4. Yeah. That's a heavy gauge line that's designed to take that amount of power. And if the breaker's not correct, that's another issue. You can always oversize the cable, but you can't oversize the breaker.
True.
If you're going to spend too much money oversizing the cable, it's a safe thing.
Yes.
Like, the example, an extension cord. Most extension cords sold at any Depot store or Canadian Tire for that matter is a 16 gauge to a 14 gauge. But we should all be using 12 gauge. That's my opinion. Why? You ever seen your extension cord curl? Got a 100-foot extension cord and it curls. It curls because you plug something into it, probably a big heater that's drawing a lot, and you've had it running for a while, and that extension cord heated up so much, you unplug it, you can feel it in your hand, but it heated up so much that it curls. That's a sign that you've used too much power on that electrical extension cord, which is why I say use a 12 gauge all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, extension cords have been our kind of a nemesis of ours for years.
Because we use indoors, outdoors, indoors, which is okay.
They become permanent. People forget they're there. They get put under carpets. They become part of the scenery. No one even knows they're there until it starts a fire. So.
And that's the problem. I remember, here's one I've never said before. I was 18, probably 18 years old, 17 or 18. We were living in a house together. My brother and his friend were sleeping in the one room. It was cold in the winter. And he was a slob. I love him, but a bit of I was the clean one. I always cleaned, and I threw his crap on his bed and said, "You got to clean that later." Anyways, sorry, Jim. There was an extension cord in the room with a heater. He turned it up to 1,500 watts. They were drinking. They passed out. Yeah, he was young. They were drinking. They passed out. And I woke up smelling smoke. The extension cord was the wrong extension cord for a 1,500 watt heater. It was running so much, they had their clothes on where he plugged into the extension cord, right on it. The clothes caught on fire. I woke up smelling it. I opened up the door and there's smoke everywhere. I follow the smoke, I run into the room, I wake them up. There's a fire in the room. I wake them up. I unplug the cord, I put out the fire, get them out of the house. Now I open up windows. Obviously someone's already called the fire department because they come in. There was that much smoke. The point to this subject is using an extension cord is a temporary thing. It is not a permanent thing to use. It is not advisable for the heater. If you read the heater label, it says plug directly into a receptacle and not into an extension cord for this reason. That's why I read directions. It just makes sense to me. But it happened to me. It was a good thing I woke up, because if I didn't wake up, my brother wouldn't be here anymore for me to give him crap. True story. Okay. I know there's a lot of red flags when it comes to contractors working on people's homes when it comes to electrical. One, I know that the inspectors must come in and they want to inspect the electrical in rough-in stage, not after it's all drywalled.
Correct.
So that's a red flag.
A big red flag, because without us seeing what's behind the walls, we can't really inspect it, so you'll be tearing down drywall. We don't like doing it, but we have a job to do, so we want to make sure all the joints are done properly in the box, because at final we can't see what's in the box, because usually everything's turned on anyway. So we want to see all the joints done, all
And
the
proper
marrettes.
staples on
Yep.
the wires at the distance they're
Proper
supposed to be
distance
apart.
back. And
I mean, just the little things, but how can you expect an inspector to come in and visually see how it's all run when the drywall's up? So that's a no-no, and it's a big red flag. There's got to be more.
Absolutely. So one of the things we've talked about here is that the LEC, the licensed electrical contractor, needs to get a permit. We've been made aware of cases where somebody who's not licensed, knowing that they can't take out a permit, will ask the homeowner to take out a permit for the work that this other person who's not licensed is actually doing. If you're the
Here's
homeowner,
someone that knows.
Absolutely.
Here's a way out. I asked the homeowner, you go ahead. But what he doesn't realize is he's opening the door for the electrical he's about to do, because they've gone and got a permit, which they're allowed to do.
yet the homeowner is allowed to get a permit for the work that the homeowner is going to do themselves on their own home.
Not the handyman.
Not the handyman. And now that handyman's work, from our records, is being done under your name. I mean, it's really just exacerbating the problem, right?
And not to mention how many times that say, well, if you do it for cash, you don't get a permit. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. You're going to save money. Folks, don't do anything for cash. There is no paper trail, number one. Number two, that's a red flag in itself, simply because they're trying to get out of doing things right and trying to make it look like that they're saving you money. Big no-no. Not to mention, the permits, they're not expensive to pull out a permit on a house. What's the average?
Contractor might be $250. That's a couple visits for your service, rough-in, final.
$250
and
bucks.
And if the homeowner takes out, it's more expensive because we have to do more visits.
Which I can appreciate that. That means you're working hand in hand with the homeowner. But that's not a lot of money to make sure your home is done safely. There is no issues. Let's talk about permits. When do we need a permit? Let's say a handyman is going to change a light. Do you need a permit?
A homeowner and a
That's a
licensed...
gray zone, isn't it?
Well, it's not really a gray zone. It's in the code. It says a homeowner can change a light and a light switch without a permit. Under the exemptions for a licensed electrical contractor, they can do it without a permit because it's they're replacing an existing fixture. It's under 130 volts and 30 amps, I believe. So an LEC can go in and change all your receptacles, change all your lights without a permit because they're trained to do it. They're licensed. They have insurance.
Why'd you say 30 amps?
It's in the code. It's just a number they picked arbitrarily to say this is the limit what they can do without a permit
Oh, I see.
in an owner-occupied dwelling unit.
Okay, now I'm a little concerned with this because it says that the homeowner can change a light. That's pretty easy. I mean, black to black, white to white. It's really simple. When it comes to a light, all the switch is doing is switching the hotline. It's doing this. On, right, off. That's what the switch is doing. I'm more concerned about a homeowner replacing a switch and or receptacle on their own if they don't know what they're doing. What if the wiring in the house is aluminum and they grab a copper switch? You need an AL switch or AL receptacle. That, when you're in an older home, I don't recommend homeowners to mess with the electrical at all. Changing a light, go ahead and change the light. That means the wires that went to the light were proper. Even if the old switch is the push button switch, remember those old black ones? They still exist, by the way. I still see them. Rarely, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. Well, the code requires them, if they change a receptacle, they need a permit.
They need a permit.
For receptacles, yeah. Just lights and light switches.
Good.
That's the only exemption for a homeowner.
Because the light switch is under a certain amount of power.
And it's simple. It should be.
It should be simple.
Until we get into smart switches.
That's a different story.
Yeah. Some require a neutral. A lot of the existing wiring does not have an identified conductor there or neutral.
Yeah, there's four wires on it. On most, there's 4 wires on most smart switches.
To get them to work, sometimes they'll just put the white wire to the box. So now some of that leakage current or unbalance will go to the box and could potentially give a shock. Not much, but you'll get a tingle sometimes.
Right, and not that. I mean, a great notice of that is if the lights are starting to flicker, it means they've lost something in the common line or something. But there's some.
Yeah.
If your lights flicker, you probably need to bring in a licensed electrical contractor.
Especially if you walk into the room and the lights start to flicker.
Yeah.
I've seen Scotch tape holding the two wires together.
Okay. And it's usually done by homeowners. In most of my years of construction, it's been done in past generations that have played with electrical. There's a picture here. I'm going to go right to it just because it reminds me. Not that one. Not that one. I can't wait to show you that one. This one. How many homeowners have done stuff like this?
Have like the receptacles pulled out and just.
This is right at the panel. You can see the panel in the background. And they have receptacles like lined up, pulled off a plug. 1, 2, 3. I see at least 3 extension cords plugged into it. This is, man, this isn't even temporary. This is like insane to do something like this.
I would never imagine anyone doing that.
These are real photos.
Yeah.
Not made up. They're real photos that people send in. You send them in. I want to encourage you to keep sending them in. The panel is completely open. They've wired into the panel. Some extension cord was wired directly into the panel, which is a no-no. The receptacles hanging out is a no-no. Everything about this, if you bought a house and you saw this, that's a no-no.
Yeah.
But it can be fixed. Okay, it hasn't burnt down yet.
Yeah.
It can be fixed. Or someone can at least get electrocuted. Let's look at the next one, the beginning. It's kind of different. It's kind of different. We have a double receptacle on a wall, and what they've done is they've created a plug into a conduit, which is metal conduit, a receptacle box, ran from the receptacle and plugged it in to, more than likely, because it's a switch, turn on a light through the conduit.
I've seen that a few times using NMD and stuff like that. They just.
Honestly, you and I know this is not really dangerous. It's just stupid. It's against code.
Yeah.
I mean, the only dangerous real thing about this is probably trying to unplug the plug, because now you're touching the metal, which is grounded. That pipe should be grounded.
And depends if they actually wired it correctly too to the cord cap, right? If they didn't connect the bond, then technically they could have had that metal raceway energized until someone comes and touches their faucet in the pipe or.
But it is the thing. What is safe? What isn't safe? This is against code. It's not safe. But I mean, it's way better than what I just showed. The picture that I just showed. So it's way less safe. But it's stupid. Somebody did the conduit, and then instead of properly tying into the receptacle box that's there and having the double gang receptacles, tells you they wanted to plug a lot of stuff in. So that was probably done wrong too. In my little expectations.
And they could have easily did it code compliant. They could have put a box extension on, ran the conduit right from that. It's like it wouldn't.
Now, how many times have people seen this?
Lots.
Right, lots. Now, how dangerous is it? I'm just going to say this for a second. It's because they put up new trim in the house. That light switch was proper to the old trim, was probably this wide, and it's the casing around the door. Then they put up a bigger casing, which is actually a baseboard, and they cut the plate. Is this against code?
Yes.
And why?
Well, technically that cover is supposed to contain everything in the box. You don't want to, say there was some marking and sparking in there, the last thing you want is a wood covering or something flammable.
Right.
Because those covers are designed not to catch fire.
Right. So honestly, it is against code because that plastic excussion plate that goes after the switch is not fully over the box, making the wood a possible ignition source for electrical, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Something so simple, but a no-no. Just a no-no. Here's funny stuff. That's a sink tap. Now we know it's an older home right away. We know it's an older home. I can tell by looking at it. A way to solve this problem, but it's still not allowed, it needs to be at least 3 feet away from the sink, correct?
It just changed actually. Before it said you couldn't have it, before it didn't really give you a dimension, it said you needed, in a kitchen you needed one within so many millimeters. And now it actually goes out and says you cannot put a receptacle behind a sink, and they give dimensions. But before the last code cycle, it was actually allowed.
I know, because as long as it's GFI protected, it was good. But so this is this is just foolish. Because if you're washing dishes and you're going to unplug something and one hand's in the sink, it's not a good thing. Remember, I told you, if you're grounded, you can get it. And speaking of grounded, holy cow and a half. Let's look at this one. Let's make sure this is upside. This is correct. So They brought, this is in a pool, this is lazy people, probably had a couple of too many drinks, brought an extension cord to the edge of the pool. They have another extension cord, a multi-bar, floating on slippers that is plugged into the extension cord right here that goes to the table that's in the pool with a steel leg, I love this, with a radio. And they're probably drinking. Is this advisable?
No.
Isn't this just as smart as sitting in a bathtub with a electrical radio that's plugged into the wall by the tub that's not supposed to be there?
Yeah.
That if you're in the tub and it falls in,
This is probably worse. They're just going out of their way to be stupid.
it makes me wonder, are people that stupid? Do you really think, like, would you do this on purpose? I can only hope this extension cord is not plugged in and they're doing it as a joke, but it's really stupid. It's even stupid to show.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay to do that. You are playing with your life. Odds are you will die.
And we have other pictures similar to this where they have it in like a Sunlight soap bottle. They have the cord coming in the end where the soap came out, and they have a area cut out for the receptacle so it floats.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not, these aren't the only people that did it.
Water and electrical don't mix.
I think people need to have a healthy fear of electricity. It's the kind of thing that you just don't play with around water like that, ever.
No,
ever.
because that is a total instant possible death.
100%.
There is no way around that. If you survive that, you should go buy a lottery ticket, because odds are you're not going to survive that. You're getting full amperage. Soon as that turns upside down, you got full amperage. 2 people in the pool, they're going to get it, and that's going to be a heavy, heavy amount. Here's something really good in this picture here. We talked about the EV. Now, I'm not saying this was to do with an EV, but you can see on that line that it was obviously running too much current through it, and it's practically melted everything on it. Something was obviously, this is not wired correctly. I can see them right. It should be plugged in directly, but just the proof of too much power running through that line, there's a fire waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. Or one hell of a shock if you want to touch it.
And you know, every day you see people, they'll renovate their house, they'll buy new furniture, they'll never touch their electrical. They won't upgrade anything. And like that, properly maintained, that would have never happened, because probably, I think that looks like aluminum wiring. And you should be torquing your breakers, all your neutral conductors, like all the time, operating your breakers, just doing a little bit of electrical maintenance that no one ever touches. They buy a house, that panel sits there for 30 years till they sell it, no one does a thing to it. So in that case, proper maintenance probably would have prevented that, but no one ever seems to think of that.
Well, every year we get our furnaces cleaned.
Yeah.
You know, because we should. It's the lungs of the home. We should get it cleaned. Prolongs the life of the furnace. There could be a condensation issue that's rusting out the bottom. That's something we should be doing. And I would have to say that even for the electrical in your home, get it looked at. It's not a lot of money. Make sure at least once you bought a house and you move in, get it looked at. At least have peace of mind that everything is fine and safe in your home. Because the little things like, this is someone stupid. This is someone really stupid. We don't know if these lines are live, but they used a beer can, popped it out as probably somewhat of a junction, or tried to keep the wires from going anywhere. This should be all disconnected, and I don't know, maybe they did that for a laugh. They put it through a beer can. That's just plain stupid. It really is.
Oh yeah.
Bottom line here, what we need to do is to make sure that we know who's playing with electrical in our home. It should be a licensed electrical contractor, or you personally, that pulls a permit on your home. Every time you mess with electrical, get a permit. It's that simple, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And these guys from ESA are going to love you for it, and they're going to help you do things right. We're not asking a lot, are we?
Nope. We're electricians inspecting electrical work. We're not out to get you. We're, you know,
Out to keep you safe.
yeah, we like to be fair and reasonable. We understand existing installations. We understand new installations, how they can work together, and we want to make sure at the end of the day, everything's safe. And because electricity, you only know it goes bad after it's too late.
Yeah, someone dies.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's the worst
fire.
part. Is there any common violations that ESA has been finding?
We usually have a top 10 defect list we like to put around every now and then. Consistently across the province, arc fault protection is one of our most common defects, people missing it. And it is a vital part of your safety system because it will prevent fires. It's proven to do that. So,
Well, I know that with the arc fault, we're looking at doing the whole house, but right now it's everything to do with bedrooms, correct?
actually, it's almost every receptacle in the house with a few exemptions. Like your kitchen counters don't need it, and a fridge in the kitchen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why every receptacle? Because now we got receptacles that are childproof, and it's really hard to get that plug in.
Originally, when it was in the bedrooms, people would plug in a lamp that would stay there for 20 years, and a lot of the fires started at the plug-in.
Because the bed was usually, the covers
Up,
were near it,
break
right?
break the cord into the
Number one
receptacle.
fire was in the bedroom.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why it started in the bedrooms, and then they expanded it to every receptacle in the house except the kitchen counters and the fridge.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it because the point is what happens with the arc fault receptacle and or breaker, depending on how they do it, it's cheaper to do with a receptacle when it comes to electrical work. What it's doing is its job. If it senses an arc anywhere in the system, it will blow it. So it's not a stupid thing, it's really a smart thing.
Oh, the technology is actually pretty good. Early on, we had some growing pains with
I
nuisance.
remember.
Yeah, and
I'm vacuuming the floor. You know how many people complained and said you did the electrical wrong?
we're still getting them though, a little bit, but not as much.
And what else?
For nuisance stripping, or
No, in common. In common.
the
Top 10.
running of non-metallic sheath cable, so your NMD 90. Just since residential is a lot of our inspections, a lot of defects are just running the cable, how to support it, strap it, terminate it in boxes, supportive outlet boxes, and regular junction boxes.
So just improper cables and how it's run.
Yep.
Okay, so it's another one in the top 10. I see it all the time.
Yep. Panel directories, because we want to clearly identify what that breaker serves. So you can't just put receptacles, lights, receptacles, lights, receptacles, lights, because when you go there to do any troubleshooting,
People can't see it.
you click it off, you hear the guy, no, no.
Proper identification on the panels. Something simple.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it means you may have some bad electrical in your home because real good guys list every single breaker. It's their job. So no doubt there is always a bunch of things. When you walk in a house to see something wrong, there's usually many things you see, not just one.
Yeah, 32 millimeters back. Corners are the worst in houses. Trying to get your wire around corners, the way people frame, everyone's different. And to drill a hole 32 millimeters back, both sides, it's very, very hard to do and challenging. So a lot of times, most inspectors usually look at every corner just to make sure that, because that's the hardest spot.
Nothing's lapped in the corner. They didn't cut it. For the drywallers to put a screw in. I've seen this
And
so
they're
many
drilling
times.
kind of,
Right.
so it's wires so to the front, and when the drywallers come in, they'll hit the wire.
Best electricians don't go through the corners. They usually go
Sometimes
up
it's
and
hard.
down.
A lot of people go up.
Yeah.
Now
It's
with the arc fault requirements being in all the receptacles, a lot of people change their wiring methods, and the neutral at a switch or a white wire at all the switches now have to change their wiring methods. So now they have to go to a switch first, as opposed to before you just go to a light down to the switch with a 2-wire. So it's changing the way people are wiring stuff too. So that's also one of the defects, is no white wire at a switch, because now, because of the smart switches coming on, they require, a lot of them require that neutral. So the code caught up and said, hey, put a neutral there.
And we should have a neutral in every single box.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's funny because I've had people complain to me years ago, because I'm a general contractor. I bring in everyone. And about the beginning of the arc fault receptacles. And they were growing pains, and we fixed it. It's gotten better and better. So today, use them. But the point of me being the general contractor, everyone loved me. I explained everything. I bring in licensed contractors such as electricians, HVAC, and I've done this for years. Talking to a good contractor like me, should homeowners verify the subs that I'm using, like electricians and plumbers? Should they verify?
So I would say yes. I think it should be part of the discussion at the beginning when you're starting that relationship with your general contractor, confirming your expectation that they aren't going to be doing that electrical work themselves, and confirming your expectation that the work that the electrical contractor they're going to subcontract to is going to be done by a licensed electrical contractor who's going to take out the permits. I think it's a great way to show that general contractor that you know how to protect yourself and that you're expecting good quality work from the right people.
So I agree, but I think the easiest thing to do, and we said it earlier, is one, make sure there's 3 permits in the window. That's building, HVAC, and plumbing.
Yep.
2, check that there is a permit pulled on your home. You don't have to ask me, you can check.
Yeah.
Go to ESA.com and check to see if a permit's pulled on the house. And if it's not, then come to someone like me going, I don't see a permit pulled for electrical. Just double check. It's
Yep.
to your advantage.
It is.
Another top 10?
We're seeing a lot of unapproved equipment. It's a requirement in Ontario. Everything has to be certified or approved for use. And we're seeing right now, contractors are even put in a bad spot because homeowners are sourcing their own equipment due to shortages in Ontario and cheaper prices online. Then they're coming in and saying, hey, wire up this steam generator for my shower. And they're like, I can't.
It's not CSA approved? Is that the number what we're looking for?
We usually typically everyone just says CSA
URL?
approved.
What is it?
They're all certification bodies, so there's UL, there's a whole pile of them, but we always typically just say CSA approved.
Well, I've had Frank come on one of our jobs when we're filming, and a homeowner did exactly that. Bought something, I don't know if it was on the Amazon or whatever, but it came in from another country, and it wasn't recognized in Ontario, so he says, I can't install that.
Absolutely.
Like, why can't you? We understand what that is. And he goes, it's not registered. It's not approved in the electrical standards of where we live.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I guess we got to go get another one. He goes, yes. But that's Frank. I mean, Frank's a good guy. He's going to make sure that what he does is right, because he doesn't want it to come back on him and haunt him.
Our LECs are usually really good. They'll call the inspector and say, what do I do? And we're like, they either have to get it field evaluated if it falls under that scope, and essentially homeowners that think they're saving money end up costing them thousands more because this service isn't cheap to get it field evaluated, or they have to ship it back and they're done.
That's right. If it actually costs money to these companies that are trying to bring products in from other countries that are not tested, takes time and money. I can see how this is working, but it's up to the homeowners and the licensed electrical contractors to make sure they're buying the right things that are recognized where we live.
And if it's sold in Ontario, from someone in Ontario, we have regulatory powers. We can go after them and make them get it approved. So, but if the problem is when it's outside of Ontario, we have no jurisdiction, so there's nothing we can say.
I get it. I get it.
But they come in anyway, and homeowners try and think they're doing the right thing and saving money, and sometimes they'll even say they're going to come in CSA approved. They'll have the labels like on Amazon. Amazon's actually really good working with us, but it's the whoever.
No, I bet you they are, because they care too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
third parties sometimes. We're the smaller market.
But I think they've learned from their mistakes,
Yeah.
much like, we all do. They've learned from their mistakes that they're actually checking now if the Amazon's going to bring it in and just distribute it to the people here. They want to make sure that everything is acceptable and safe, because they will look bad if it didn't.
Yeah, people returning things.
Not to mention they don't want to be responsible for anybody getting hurt.
Yes.
I don't blame them.
Yep. But we're typically a victim of a smaller market. The U.S. market has their own standards, and we have ours. So a lot of times one manufacturer ships to both. But if they're running out of units, they'll ship some out without labeling them properly. So we'll get them here with just a UL with no C on it, so they can't technically wire them up here. But we know they're the exact same hot tub. It kind of puts us in a rough spot too.
Right. What did we learn today? We learned that you should always get a permit. It just makes sense, and I don't care what it is. You should get a permit, especially electrical. We learned that look for the little red flags. Don't be afraid to buy a house that looks like there's bad electrical, because after you buy it, you bring in a licensed electrical contractor to do a test and troubleshoot. Don't be afraid. Do things right. Everyone wins. Your family's safe, you're safe, and you don't get in trouble. To the contractors out there, to the handymen out there that are playing and keep playing, careful. This is going to come back to bite you. I want to thank you both for coming in today. It has been great. I love this because it is education, and it is all about doing things right the first time. Pull your permits. Do your homework. It's not hard. These guys are on your side. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Improve Canada, Canada's largest home improvement center. Check out improvecanada.com. If you like the show, check out the episode page on makeitright.ca for more tips.